Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and violin tutor. So in today's video I'm going to talk to you about 3 things you should always do when learning to play the violin. But before we do go any further, I know a lot of you are new to this channel. Welcome, don't forget to subscribe and all that kind of good stuff. And I just very quickly in the next 2 minutes just want to tell you about my 1 to 30 violin course, which is really amazing. So if you've just started the violin, not really sure what to do, then let me tell you about my course. So my 1 to 30 violin course is a fully comprehensive and professional course that guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to an accomplished intermediate level by the end of it. The course is very simple and easy to understand without the commitment of an in-person tutor, but it does guarantee to give you the same level of skill that you would get from a private tutor. The course has been designed so that anyone of any age and any level can follow it. The lessons and videos are super easy to follow and absolutely no prior knowledge of any instrument or music is needed to start this course. The course is going to cover everything from how to hold the violin, how to hold the bow, how to read music. There's going to be some technical exercises in there to prove your skill and dexterity, music theory, bowing techniques, more complex pieces, and just much more. There's no other course like this available on the internet, and the results and reviews absolutely speak for themselves. My course will take you from this to this. The course is fully downloadable, is available worldwide, and you can purchase from my shop, www.amsmusicshop.com. It is $59.99 US, and you can get started straight away. I should add in that these books are 100% downloadable, so there is nothing physical that will be shipped out to you. So all you're going to need is your violin and bow and your enthusiasm to get started. I'd also just like to quickly mention as well about my 2 subscription websites. I've got a Patreon one and I've got my own one, online violin tutor.com. Both of them are exactly the same. They're just subscription websites, $10 monthly, but they give you access to my complete back catalogue of violin sheet music. There's some violin cover pieces in there as well. There's a little bit of easy piano music. There's some violin backing tracks. There's a couple of other bits and bobs as well. It's a $10 monthly subscription, but the catalogue is added to on a monthly basis. And off the top of my head, there are, I think, just over 800 sheets of easy violin sheet music that you can quickly gain access to. But it's either or, so don't subscribe. There's no need to subscribe to both of them. Either subscribe to my Patreon, either subscribe to my website. All the details will be underneath this video for you. Okay, 3 things that you should do when learning to play the violin. So, number 1. Make sure you have a decent violin. I know the violin is quite an expensive hobby, but if you're planning on taking online lessons, for example, the course that I've just told you about, it's a $60 course, so that's it. It's a one-time payment. It's a guaranteed course to take you from a complete beginner to a very decent intermediate player. The reviews speak for themselves. I know a lot of you are already on the course, and you comment below if you don't believe me and read those. But if you're on a course, it's going to cost you $60. If you're planning on having an in-person tutor, then it's going to cost you obviously a lot more money. And if you still want that, absolutely, that's your right to do so. But if you're going to spend your hard-earned money and your time and effort learning to play a violin, which is, you know, it's very time consuming. If you're going to be a surgeon, you know it's going to be a time consuming 7 years in med school, whatever it is. It's around that in the UK. Not quite sure what it is in the US or other countries, but you get my point. You're going to be spending a lot of time and effort and brain power and all that kind of stuff dedicating to something. So you want to make sure that you've got the right tools for it. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and spend thousands on a violin like this. Absolutely not. But you want to be spending more than $100, and you certainly don't want to be buying anything less than $100. Just don't do it to yourself. Just don't. You might think that, you know, there's nothing wrong with a $50 violin, but I can tell you, along with everybody else that does this, you know, makes these kind of videos, and all the other teachers out there, that there is absolutely everything wrong with buying a $50 violin. They might look like violins, but my God, they are really not violins. There's so many things wrong with them. For example, you cannot tune them. They just don't want to tune because the peg box up here is just horrendous that they don't want to tune. So they've just shoved in pegs any old how. They don't fit the slots in the peg box, so you can't physically tune. The amount of comments that I'll get with, especially under tuning videos that I've made, where people will say, I can't tune my violin, it keeps slipping out, etc., etc. You know, it's time to upgrade to a better violin. So if you can't tune your violin, which is going to take me on to point 2 in a second, you know, you're not even going to be able to get out the starting gates because your violin's just not going to be in tune. The second thing that's usually wrong with them are the bridges. Now, a lot of times with the cheaper violins, you know, I'm talking about these really cheap $50 ones, probably less than $100. The type that you kind of get on Amazon is that the bridges do not come fitted. They come pretty much straight and very thick, and they expect you to become a violin luthier in about 5 minutes and sand it down and sort it out yourself, or you've got to pay someone to do that. My advice to you is to buy something decent. Now, for those of you that are in the US, for example, you've got the Fiddlerman or the fiddlershop.com. I've reviewed near enough, probably about 80% of the violins that he's got. I'll put a link to his website directly underneath. I am not affiliated with them. The Fiddlerman is not paying me to do this video. I wish he was, but he's not. He doesn't even know I'm making this video. He sent me a lot of his violins. I've reviewed them, as a lot of you guys know, and I've put them in a playlist. And you know, I like them, and I do suggest that you guys go and buy them because they're good. He's got a violin to suit every budget, every sound, every type, every this, every that. So he's got a really good selection. And if you do need any help, you know, you can always reach out to him. Tell him I sent you his way. Reach out to him, and he'll be very helpful to you. Tip number 1 to do when learning the violin: do yourself a favor. Get yourself a decent violin. You're probably looking at around $250 and upwards, depending on your budget. The better the violin, the quicker you will learn, the better you will get on, and the less frustrated you will feel because the instrument is going to be responding more to you and the slight nuances all the time. So, touched on it earlier. Number 2, make sure your violin is properly in tune before you start. The amount of times I see people starting their practice session without a violin in tune is just simply astonishing. So guys, always make sure that you tune your violin. I do have a link, I've got a link to a couple of videos that I've made, various videos that I've made on tuning the violin, and I've got some more very detailed ones on how to physically tune the violin. I'll put those links in underneath this video, but do make sure your violin is in tune before you start. It's absolutely imperative, because if you don't, you're training your ear to think, you know, the strings sound like this, but they don't, because they sound like something else. And then when you start to put your fingers down in the positions that they're supposed to be going down in, if your string is 4 notes lower than it actually should be, when you put your first finger on the A string and want to get the sound of a B, you're not going to get the sound of a B. You're going to get the sound of, I don't know, an F or an F sharp or an E or something like that. So everything is going to be really skewed. your playing isn't going to sound right. Maybe your E string is in tune, your A string isn't. So every time you go onto the E string, that's going to sound fine. When you go back onto the A string, everything's going to sound a bit kind of mismatched. So always make sure your violin is in tune, because it's going to put you in good stead, and your ear, you're going to start developing your musical ear a lot better. You don't want things going wrong before you've started. So if you've got a decent instrument and said instrument is in tune, then we know that all our tools coming out of the box are A-OK. And finally, the third thing that you must do before you learn to play the violin is to make sure that you've got plenty of rosin on your bow. Now, again, I've got some detailed videos on exactly how much rosin you need to put on the bow and how to do that, and I'll link that underneath this video. But you just want to make sure that you've got plenty of rosin on your bow before you start. Now, if you've got a brand new violin, you'll have no rosin on the bow. Depending on the quality of the bow will depend on the quality of the hair. So if you've got if you are playing on one of those cheaper violins, don't do it. But if you are playing on one of those cheaper violins and you've already got one, you know, fine, that's already been done. Look to upgrade just as soon as you possibly can. Then you're going to have a bow with synthetic hair, or very cheap synthetic hair. Now, cheap synthetic hair doesn't really want to attach to rosin very well. And again, if you're using the rosin that you're getting out of the cases of the cheap violins, they usually come with some rosin. Add that in with your cheap synthetic bow, and you're not, it doesn't want to adhere properly. So all I would suggest for you guys that are in that predicament is just to make sure that you probably spend a good 10 to 15 minutes, applying plenty of rosin on that bow, because the rosin won't attach to the bow hairs as quick as it would if you have, say, a better quality bow, or, you know, along with a violin, or, you know, something like this. This is a very expensive bow, worth thousands of dollars. I've got blue Mongolian horsehair in this, so it isn't a problem. But if you're in a situation where you've got a brand new bow and you are sort of, you know, you have got a more student quality violin, you need to be spending a good 10 to 15 minutes putting some rosin on. Now, you don't want to over rosin the bow. If you put too much rosin on the bow, once you've done that, I would just advise just playing it off and don't apply any more for a good while. And you'll know that's the case, because when you'll be playing, you'll just get a lot of fallout and a lot of dust on here. So again, just make sure you clean the strings with just a dry, one of those kind of yellow duster type cloths, and make sure you clean it off of the body of the violin as well, so it doesn't kind of get sticky. The other thing you can do is invest in a slightly better quality rosin. My favourite rosin is this one. It's Sartori rosin. It is quite expensive. It's quite expensive as far as rosins go. I always have two of these. I've got one in my case which is sitting behind, and I always have just a random spare one. So yeah, this is quite expensive rosin. Off the top of my head, I can't think how much it is. I'll put a link to it underneath if I can find one. But it's really nice rosin. I find it gives a nice bright sound to my bow. A lot of people do like it, no matter what kind of bow they've got, cheap, expensive. It isn't dusty, and it isn't gritty as well. And you don't need so much of this. The thing is, when you've got those cheaper cakes of rosin, is that you have to put a lot of them. I know a lot of you have the Hide to Shine rosin. It's okay. It's better than the really rubbish stuff that you get when you buy the very cheap violins. But Hide to Shine is a really great rosin. Parastro Gold Flex, I know a lot of people have that as well. Personally, that isn't for me. I found it too gritty and too dusty. I've tried a few over the time, and I've always gone back to Sartori rosin. I know a lot of people like that. So if you get yourself a good quality rosin, you won't have to over apply it. You won't have to apply too much, and it won't give you grit and scratch and dust. There we go, just a very quick video on 3 things that you should always do when learning to play the violin. Don't forget to check out my 1 to 30 violin course and my Patreon site, and or my website, my own subscription website, both the same thing. I will put the links in the description box underneath. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.